Okay, let's do this. Okay, friends, I have just got back from seeing Alien Romulus. As many of you will have seen, I did a reaction video to their trailers, and I was really impressed by the trailers. Really impressed by the trailers. I genuinely thought that I was like, oh my lordy, they're actually making alien movies scary again. In the trailers, the atmosphere was intense. It was beautiful. It was glorious. It really brought back the atmosphere of all of the old Alien movies that I absolutely loved. And I was really excited for this one. And today I went to see it. Literally an hour ago, I was in the cinema doing all my bits and pieces. And now here I am with all of my notes. I didn't take notes in the cinema. Don't worry. I took notes afterwards while they were fresh in my memory so that I could go through them, okay? So yeah, I'm going to go through my review now to tell you all how I felt about it. Originally, I wanted to do it completely without spoilers, but I realized that there's certain elements of it that I'm not going to be able to talk about without spoilers. So the way that I'm going to do it is I'm going to do a section without spoilers, and then a section with spoilers, and then my summary that has no spoilers at all. Okay, so that people can watch the bits without spoilers if they would like to see my review of it, of the overall atmosphere, of little dynamics within the movie that don't explain what actually happens in the movie itself. Then there'll be a section you can skip if you would like to skip that, if you don't want to have any spoilers for the movie, and then you can go straight over to the summary and just check it out if you want to check that stuff out. Okay, so that's the way I'm going to do it. Let's get into it, shall we? Okay, the first section without spoilers. Now, I will possibly be referencing things that we have seen in the trailers. So if you don't want any spoilers, realistically speaking, if you don't want any spoilers for the movie at all, you will not be watching this review. Let's be honest about this. So this section without spoilers is going to be referencing like the trailers that we've seen that I've done reactions to, but nothing outside of the trailers. I don't want to give you anything like that. It'll also reference like the atmosphere, the dynamics, certain elements of it without giving details of the movie itself. Okay? So that's where that's going to come in. And then we'll do the next section with the spoilers in a bit. All right? So first of all, the writer or one of the writers and the director, Fede Alvarez, which I believe is how you pronounce it. If I'm pronouncing it wrong, genuine apologies there. It was rumored to me before I went to see it that the writer-director, Fede Alvarez, was a massive fan of the franchise, massive fan of all of the Alien movies, the Alien Isolation game, etc. And you can really see that in this movie. You can really see that the people who created this in the production team side of things, the writing and the direction of it, you can really see that they love the source material. They love the original Alien movies. And to be fair, pretty much the entire franchise as a whole. And that level of love and care comes out especially in movies like this. It's one of those things that has become more and more apparent to me as time's gone on when it comes to movies. It's one thing to have a great director or have great writers. It's another thing to have great writers and directors and production teams that love the material, that love the story that already exists. That really sets apart things when it comes to creating the atmosphere. And as we've already talked about many times, I love a good atmosphere when it comes to movies and what have you, you know? As a result, you can really see that the entire movie has little nods to the entire franchise, like all of the Alien movies that we have seen, 1, 2, 3, 4. So like Alien, Aliens, Alien 3, and Alien Resurrection. It also has references to Alien Isolation, the computer game that came out a while back, that again, I absolutely love. And it also has references to the Prometheus movies, both Prometheus and Alien Covenant. I didn't see any references to the crossover movies with Predators. Like, I didn't see anything in there to do with Predators, but I can't say that they definitely weren't there because I might have just missed it. I've only seen the one, so I might have just missed it. But in regards to the other ones, the Alien movies, the Alien game, and the Prometheus movies, 110%. They are like lots and lots of little nods to all of those movies, which is how you can really tell that the writer-director was a fan of the franchise as a whole. Now, I have to say that I personally am not a fan of the Prometheus movies. I really hated Alien Resurrection. Alien 1, loved. Alien 2, loved. Alien 3, I actually really enjoyed Alien 3. I thought it was a really unique concept and an interesting direction they took it in. Alien Resurrection, I hated it so much. I hated it so very much. And the Prometheus movies themselves, I found to be great science fiction movies, but terrible alien movies. Like, if there was just a sci-fi movie that had nothing to do with the alien universe, I would have loved them. I would have genuinely loved them. But because they were to do with the alien universe, it kind of shit all over everything that I knew about the alien universe, because I've read a whole load of the books and seen a load of the animated novels and what have you. So the graphic novel stuff. So all of the things that I knew about the alien species, the xenospecies, and their interaction with the other species like the predator species and human beings and etc. The Prometheus movies just shit all over all of that. And it's not that I didn't like the Prometheus movies. Like I said, I liked the Prometheus movies as movies in and of themselves. It's that I thought that the origins of the xenomorphs, as I understood them to be in accordance with the books that I read and the animated novels that I'd read, was so much more interesting than this idea of, oh, well, you know, we made them. They're genetic experiment that happened to do a thing. Hey. I hate that whole thing where they just explain away things where, oh, well, they were a genetic experiment by a really super advanced race. That makes complete sense. Yeah, sure. Whatever. I hated all of that. So I got the references to like the Prometheus movies and stuff, but I didn't like them. I got the references to the Alien Resurrection movie, but I just didn't like them. They were elements of it where I was like, oh, of course they would have to put this stuff in. They would have to do these things, but I'm just not a fan of that sort of stuff, you know? Now, in regards to chronologically, where Alien Romulus sits, it's what they call an interquel, which is not a prequel, not a sequel. It's an intermissional sequel. So it's set in between Alien 1 and Alien 2. If I remember correctly, it's 20 years after Alien, the original movie, and 40 years before Aliens movie. And if you know the game Alien Isolation, it's just after that. So it's in between the first two movies, okay? I really like the concept of it. I really liked it was a very different style of concept because it was about these. We talked about the trailer. We talked about the fact that I personally was like, oh my God, the crew's very, very young. What the hell's going on here? But the reason why the crew are young is really interesting to me. So from what we see on the trailers and things that I can tell you in this little section, they are colonists who are desperate to get out of where they are. And the reason that they find to go into space onto the space station is a legitimate reason. It's not like a shoehorned reason. It's not like okay, they've been blackmailed or what have you. There is a legitimate reason for going up there, which I was really worried about, and I'm glad that I was proven wrong. And it's really interesting to see their dynamic before they go to the station. It's really interesting to see that dynamic and the world that they live in before you go to the station. In all of the other Alien movies, we as the audience get this sort of implication. There's the idea of corporations ruling, the idea of corporations, the impression that corporations rule the universe and they treat everybody like garbage, and it's all about the corporate goals and all about the money and all that stuff. You know, it's all about the whatever the corporations want, and immorality is rife. And you get that impression throughout all of the movies, the idea that the workers are just the workers and they do their jobs and everybody's crushed upon and what have you. But this was the first movie that I can think of that I can remember where you really see what it's like to be the bottom rung of that ladder. You get to see what it's like. What is life like as a bottom rung of the ladder corporation worker? I'm finding this really quite hard to not spoil it now. But I'm doing my best. Okay? As part of seeing what it's like to be a bottom rung of the ladder worker, you really get to see how immoral, and bearing in mind that that section isn't hugely long, because obviously they've got to get into the nitty gritty of what actually the movie is about. But that little section isn't very long, but you immediately see how immoral an unregulated corporation is. Like how very, very quickly it's just like, yeah, here are things that are immoral, but they're going to do them anyway, because who's going to stop them? And that was a really interesting, eye-opening point to see. Now, once the movie itself actually gets going, like there's a slow into start to get to know the characters, understand why they're there, do all the bits and pieces, and why they are going up to the space station. Once that's all done and things start get going, it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. It's just intense. It is so intense. The entire movie is just so unbelievably intense. It's honestly like one scene after another, after another, after another, high intense situation after one, after another, after another, after another. And it makes sense. And weirdly, it doesn't feel badly paced. It feels well paced, despite the fact that it is so intense throughout the entire movie. There's also some really genuinely unnerving moments in it. Despite that tension, it's weird to explain, but they're different types of tension. There's like elements of it where some of it's like super high, oh my god, there's high action moment, and then other moments where things are just unnerving, but the tension's there. It's just like a different type of tension. But that doesn't stop throughout the entire movie. It just doesn't stop. But like I said, the pacing of it felt really good. But possibly because of the fact that it was a roller coaster of tension. But the pacing of it just felt good. It felt right. It proceeded at a very steady pace despite that tension. Now, in my reaction of the trailer, the thing that I noticed the most was the fact that they really played into the idea of the face huggers. So in the other movies that we see the face huggers in, they are a means to an end. They're a means to implant a person with the xenomorph. And normally speaking, there's only like 1 or 2 eggs when you see the alien eggs that really open at a time. And this movie really lent into that. I feel like the movie itself, as I mentioned in the trailers before, the movie itself understood the fact that xenomorphs and the scariness of xenomorphs had been overdone to all hell. Therefore, they decided to focus not lots more, but a little bit more on how terrifying facehuggers are as a creature. And they are genuinely scary, unnerving, unsettling, messed up, and scary. And the way that they tended to do that was, first of all, by making them like a plague of rats, for starters, which was unnerving as all hell, like the hordes of zombies in World War Z. And also to then focus in on what better word can I use than slimy the creatures are. There's some really visceral moments in it that had my entire group that were there, and I'm sure everybody in the cinema being like, and you can see some of those moments in the trailer itself, but it goes really next level with it. I have to say, it goes really next level with it. And this was probably the first Alien movie where there's been moments where I'm like, it's unsettling, it's unsightly, it's unnerving in its visceral gooiness. Is probably the best way I can put it. And not just with the facehuggers, but with the Xeno itself as well. Like that's a thing. That is definitely a thing. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the writer, director, and the production team were big fans of the franchise as a whole. And as a result, you can probably imagine there is a lot of fan service in the movie. There's a lot of nods to the previous movies, the things that have already happened and things that are yet to be in the chronology of it. There are a lot of like little subtle references in regards to the stylization of like the computers and stuff like that, and little elements that, for example, I saw in the computer game of Alien Isolation that were in this movie as well. And it's like, oh, you did that, like little subtle things that happened. And then, of course, there was big references that were just really in your face. Very much there it is. right there, whether you like it or not, you know. And I would say that most of them were good. The vast majority of them were good references. I definitely came out smiling when I saw them, and I was like, oh, okay, no, that makes a point. There was a lot of points where you would sit back and you go, oh shit, yeah, of course, this bit from this movie. Or you'd be like, oh god, yeah, no, good lord, that thing from that movie, that was great. Now it makes sense now. And speaking of making sense, the whole movie is a lore dump. The whole movie is for that tasty lore Oh, it's so... As somebody who loves lore, I love a good story. I love a storyline. I love tasty, tasty lore. This movie is full of it. Absolutely full of it. Chock-a-block full of it. Can I give you any examples without spoiling it? Okay, yeah, I can say that like it fills in some blanks. And it talks about how the corporation, Weyland-Yutani, it talks about the reasons why they are searching for this specific creature that's like a little further beyond the scope of what the rhetoric we had all been told throughout the entire movies of just, oh, bioweapon. Like that has been hammered in and hammered in and hammered in. But this movie really expanded on that a little bit as to why Weyland-Yutani were intrigued and wanting the xenomorphs and what have you. It also shows a little part of the alien evolution that up until this point, I don't think any other part of the franchise, whether it be computer games or movies or even books really, had talked about. There was like a little part of the xeno evolution from Facehugger onwards that was kind of missing, and this movie touches on it. This movie fills in that blank, that big question mark that's been throughout so many of the movies. This movie actually fills that in, and that was fascinating. That was really interesting, and the way that they did it was also really interesting. I liked that element of it, you know. And of course, they play into the like that whole regressive technology. So the first movie came out in the late 70s, and technology that we see in the original Alien movie was meant to be progressed, advanced technology, and obviously we are now 50 years on, and technology is hugely advanced. But it's interesting the way that they've kind of orchestrated it, because it's kind of like a regressive technology. It's like, okay, yeah, this is the technology that they use because technology has gone through a very different style of like technological regression. There's a lot of technology that goes through it that's got great futuristic ideas behind it, but produced in a low-tech fashion is probably the best way I can describe it. The example I can give from the trailers was the X-ray torch thing, where you see the person put it on their back and you can see through their rib cage. Like that is a really good example of like, hey, this is a high-tech idea, but it's done in a low-tech way. It's not an X-ray, it's just a torch that shines through your body and you can see your bones. Do you know what I mean? Like it's that level of high-tech idea with low-tech product kind of thing, you know? Now, there were elements about the movie that I didn't like. It really grated on me, the reasons why they did things the way that they did them. Like, for example, they bring back a familiar face. But obviously, it's been a long time since all of the movies, any one of the movies that you can reference. It's been a long time since any of those movies have been around. So in order to do that, they brought back that familiar face through the medium of computer graphics, through CGI. And it's a bad CGI. In the world where we are literally getting deep fakes of people that are super convincing, that CGI of that specific character is so bad. And it's annoying as well, because there's a way that you could have done it without the CGI and it would have worked. Like, there's a way that I can immediately think, but I can't tell you without spoilers, that you could have done that and it would have worked just as well, and you wouldn't have had this weird CGI character. And there was a couple of points that happened in the movie that were like this, that as soon as I saw them, I was immediately removed from the movie. Like, the immersion was gone. The intensity and the fear and the unnerving, unsettling nature of the whole movie was there, and I was there in the atmosphere, and then suddenly I saw something like this character's face, and I was just like, right, well, I'm no longer there anymore. I'm no longer in the moment, feeling that tension, that fear, and it takes a while to get back into it again, especially when the character is prevalent in certain scenes, you know? And it's just a shame that it was so unbelievably bad, given how good everything else was. All in all, to round up the spoiler-free section, the first 70% of the movie I loved. I didn't love every element of it, but I overall, as a group, I absolutely loved it. There were so many points that were really thinking outside the box when it comes to xenomorphs as a scary horror concept. They thought outside the box. They took elements from the previous movies. They really hammered in these dynamics of fear and tension and the alien nature of the xenomorphs from facehugger up right the way through, you know? They really brought in that terror element of it, and I absolutely loved it. I absolutely loved so very much of it. And then the last 30%, it just wasn't my cup of tea. It was intense. It was high action. It was unnerving, unsettling, but it just wasn't enjoyable for me. I think that the reason why, in fact, you know what? Let me tell you that in the spoiler section. Okay, we're going to talk about the spoilers now. We're going to talk about some spoilers. I'm not going to go into loads of detail with the spoilers because I really don't like spoiling movies for people, you know? If you want to hear this out, then keep watching, all fine and dandy. If not, then skip on to the end where I do my little review. My little review will have no spoilers, so we're good, all right? Okay, now we're in spoiler zone, okay? So I was just talking about like the last 30% of the movie and the reason why I didn't like it. And I think the reason why I didn't like it, why it didn't tick the box for me, is because it had a lot of references to the Prometheus movies. And I'm not going to say what the references were. I'm not going to say the dynamics of why they came about or anything like that. But I am going to say, for such an intense movie that was so clued into the elements of the first 3 Alien movies and Alien Isolation game, bringing in those Prometheus elements really took me out of it, because I, like I said, love the movies as science fiction movies, don't like the movies as alien movies. And because of that, I really struggled with those elements. Like the last section almost of the movie was disturbing. As I said, it was high intense, it was high action, it was disturbing. It was disturbing. Like if you've ever seen the movie Splice, it was Splice levels of disturbing. And I'm not going to give you any more information than that. I want to, because there's certain elements of it that I was like, oh my god, this but if you've seen the movie Splice, it was that level of unsettling. And I feel like if there's a director's cut of the movie, it's gonna be really unnerving, especially that little section. Like, my mind goes to all of the different places it could go, mainly because I'm a massive fan of the franchise, but also I know the artist H.R. Geiger. H.R. Geiger was the inspiration for all of this stuff, and I know what kind of art he has created in the past. And knowing his mind, knowing the way that his art is, and the kind of erotic biomechanics, the last section, if they start going down the route that I thought they were going to go down, because the way my mind was skipping ahead for so many different things, I'm like, that's unnerving. And I would imagine that if there is a director's cut, it will be just as unsettling. Just as unsettling. Oh god. There was also elements of that last section that were quite mirroring of some of the stuff that happens in Alien Resurrection, and I hate that movie. That might be the reason why I really struggled with that last little section. It just didn't seem to fit in my mind. It did, like, it followed the story followed to that point, but it just didn't seem to fit. It didn't work for me. But up until that point, it was amazing. In regards to things that I did love, in regards to things that I genuinely absolutely loved, at the very, very beginning of the movie, you saw a ship, a salvage ship, going into the rubble of the Nostromo, which is the big ship from the first Alien movie. And it was there collecting a cocoon, shall we say. A cocoon-like thing that was, from what we found out later, the original xenomorph. So from the original Alien movie, they took that back. Literally the remnants of the xenomorph from the original Alien movie, which is an interesting concept because we do see the alien in Alien 1 get blasted the fuck out of. They fall into a rocket engine and get fired away and what have you, but we don't actually ever see them die. And there have always been the fan theories that Xeno survived. It just survived in the depths of space because they don't really need to breathe or anything. Or they do, but it's like they can hold their breath for an unreasonable amount of time and go into hibernation, kind of like a tardigrade does. They can go outside, they can resist the radiation, they don't really need to breathe, they don't implode or explode or anything like that. So the whole dynamic of it going into like a hibernative state, surrounding itself in this Ica-like cocoon, like they surround all the walls of the spaceships and stuff with, like that, and then having that taken away by the corporation, very, very cool. Really enjoyed that. Really enjoyed that as a concept, to take that and then use that onwards, especially when you bear in mind some of the elements from the director's cut of the original Alien movie. So the Alien evolution that I mentioned earlier literally goes facehugger attaches to person, takes their genetic DNA, bursts the chest burster that pops out, and then they go from chest burster into full xenomorph. The bit that they briefly reference to other points and they talk about with like director's cuts and stuff like that is the fact that it's possible for a normal xenomorph to evolve into an alien queen. That is possible. It is possible for that to happen. And you see some indications of that in the director's cut of the first movie. You see them preparing the walls. You see them like learning to trap people and what have you. And that element of the Xeno preparing itself to evolve into an alien queen kind of really lends itself to this idea of it surviving the depths of space and being a viable host to start what then becomes Alien Romulus, you know? As a big Xeno nerd, loved that. Loved that. I also really love what they did with synthetics in this movie. And while I'm talking about synthetics, a massive nod to David Johnson, who was the character who played Andy, who was a synthetic character. And their performance was sensational. Was absolutely sensational. The way that they portrayed the android through various different modes of synthetic stylization, as it were, was absolutely fantastic. Genuinely, mwah, chef's kiss. Love that. Like, I feel in previous movies and franchises, the synthetics have always been people that turned out to be robots, or robotic people that were more human than human, as it were. They've always played with those dynamics, and this really hammered in the idea that they can still just be machines. They talked about the personability of it, they connected with that personability of it, but there was elements within this where it had those really human moments between synthetic and human, and other moments where it was like, actually, they are a machine. They are a machine, and as a result, these elements are completely understandable as to why they would act that way. And that was a fascinating take on that, really taking some of the personability of like Bishop, for example, in Aliens, and mixing it with the working Joes from Alien Isolation, those like purely mechanical, like that juxtaposition of stylizations with the synthetics was a really interesting take on that. That being said, the character I mentioned earlier, who was CGI'd, was a synthetic character, and it really annoys me. This is the reason why I was annoyed, all right? This is the reason why I was annoyed. It annoyed me because they're a synthetic character, and there were so many other ways. There were so many other ways that they could have brought that character about without terrible CGI. There's so many other ways they could have done that they would have, A, not cost anywhere near as much, and B, would have been infinitely better from like an aesthetic point of view. So it just confused the fuck out of me as to why they made those choices. Why have such an intense, intricate, aesthetically perfect, atmospherically perfect movie and then ruin it with bad CGI? Especially when you've got puppets. You've got puppets doing other things. You've got puppets, like all the face huggers were all puppets and stuff like that. Like, that was so cool. And then have it with just like, okay, yeah, no, that's fine. Doesn't really matter. It's fine. You know, we'll just do CGI. It's great. Just whatever. Now, I get why they're there. I get why that character is there, or that portrayal of that character is there. It is like they are there, and they are quite a key part to the storyline. So it makes sense that they are there. So I'm not upset that the character is there, but I am upset with the way they portrayed the character because it just broke immersion. Bad CGI always breaks immersion. It always does. All of it. Any one of you who has ever seen a movie with CGI in it that is just bad CGI, it breaks the immersion. You're just like, for fuck's sake, right? Well, I can't believe that person's real because their mouth is moving weird. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, this is the point where I'm going to do my little summary of my review of the movie, and there will be no spoilers from this point onwards, so you don't have to worry about that. I really enjoyed the movie. I did genuinely enjoy the movie, but I didn't enjoy it as much as I was hoping to. I didn't anywhere near as much as I was hoping to. I loved the tasty lore. I love that tasty lore. Give it to me. Feed it to me. Great. That's great. Just like I'm a small, tiny little bird. Just like chew it up and mulch it in my face. Do you know what I mean? I love that tasty lore. And I have always found the Alien universe, the lore of the Alien universe, to be absolutely bloody fascinating. I love the whole universe, the dynamic, the darkness, the twisted nature of it all. And this movie really scratches that itch. However, because the canon of the movies is inclusive of Alien Resurrection and the Prometheus movies that I personally do not like, it meant that a lot of that lore and a lot of the elements that were brought into it, I just ended up not liking. There were several moments where I was just like, right, okay, yeah, fair enough, here we go. It felt like, how can I describe it? How can I describe the emotions that I feel like? When you think of the atmosphere and the lore and the storyline of the first 3 Alien movies, even the first 2 Alien movies, but the first 3 Alien movies, ideally, you know? The tension, the fear, the unknown is all really high intense. You get some information and stuff, but there's so much fear there. And then with Alien Resurrection, which is decidedly average, in my personal opinion, and the Prometheus movies that are great movies but shouldn't be Alien movies, it brings down the intensity of the franchise as a whole. It kind of feels like you're organizing an adult party. You're organizing a party for you and your friends where you're all going to get pissed up and you're all going to have a wonderful time and you're all going to dance and there's going to be naked people all over the place, and then someone turns around and says, hey, so I can't get a babysitter, so I'm going to be bringing my kids. Is there any way that we can just get rid of all of the fun stuff so that it's like child appropriate? Like, that's how it felt. It was just like, okay, here's all the amazing, fun, interesting, intense stuff that's happening. Oh my god, this is wild, amazing. Okay, no, we just gotta work back a little bit because, you know, we've got to include Prometheus and we've got to include Alien Covenant and we've got to include the whole Alien Resurrection thing. So we're just gonna work that back a little bit. That's like, it was that level of just right, okay, fair enough. As a bit of a universe juxtaposition, in the books, in the animated novels, in the story of those things, the xenomorphs have a home planet. They have a home planet. It's not a genetic creation like in Prometheus. It's like they have a home planet and they naturally evolved and they have predators and they are prey to things and they predate on other things, and it's the environment of that planet that created that creature. And I love that as a concept. So it's such a massive push away being like, actually, you know, they were created by these supreme super beings, you know. I really dislike the idea of supreme super beings in general. I don't like the idea of any kind of civilization being almost deified. So when you see the original Alien movie and you see the pilot like with a chest burster coming out of it, it's just like, it makes sense. It's like, yeah, that is just an alien species that got caught by the xenomorphs. I love that. But that was not the case. That was not what happened, according to the canon of the movies, at the very least. But other than those elements, the movie was great. I really liked how they thought outside the box of xenomorph understanding to make them scary again. I really liked the way that they played around with the synthetics and the dynamics with the synthetics and the humans. I really liked the way they showed us how immoral and corrupt the corporations can be on a base level, on like a bottom rung of the ladder level. I really liked the reasons why everything went the way that it happened, the way that it did. And I also really, really enjoyed how fallible the characters were. There were elements of them that were just a bit shit. And that made it a bit more real to me, which was absolutely fantastic. And other than the occasional bit that just broke the immersion for me, or the bits that made me think, okay, this is a reference to one of the movies I don't like, I personally don't like. The movie itself was a good movie. I enjoyed it. I didn't realize that it was going to have as much fan service and references to the other movies. So I think I was going in expecting a lot less lore and a lot less fan service. And when the fan service came, it was like, oh my God, this is really, really cool. But then it went on and on. And I was like, okay, this is really, really cool. But now you're including things that that don't gel, that don't work, in my opinion. And it is all about opinion. You know, I'm sure many of you who love the Prometheus movies and love Alien Resurrection will completely and utterly disagree with me. And that's perfectly fine. That is perfectly fine, you know. But the thing that I think this movie did really, really well was how visceral it got, how gooey it was. They really hammered in the unnerving details that make you unsettled, that everyone knows happens, that make you unsettled. The reference I'll give you from the trailer, so that people have already seen the trailer, no spoilers from the movie itself outside of what has been seen on the trailer, is the face hugger trying to get its little tube into somebody's mouth, and they're just like pushing it away, but you can see the tube just wiggling around trying to get down their throat. That is like the level of visceral goo that I am talking. It's like, it's unnerving. You know that it happens. You know that it happens in all of the other movies, but all you ever see is a face hugger jumping at someone's face. You know, you might see one that scratching its wiggly tube of nastiness all over like a visor from a spacesuit or what have you. But to actually see that level of struggle was really unsettling and was absolutely perfect in the way that it did it, you know? So I loved those elements. I loved the way they thought outside the box. I loved the fear. I loved the tension. I loved very many of the little nods to all of the different parts of the franchise. And like I said, the first 70% of the movie, genuinely really, really loved. Genuinely really enjoyed. But that last little 30%, it just wasn't for me. It just wasn't for me. It really took the shine off it, in my personal opinion, you know? So yeah, so that was Alien Romulus. A very interesting movie. I'm really glad that I did go and see it. I was very, very excited to see it. And it is a good movie, especially if you love the franchise in its entirety, as opposed to just the parts that I like, you know? If you have seen the movie and you would like to make comments on those things, please remember that people will not have seen the movie. So if you are going to say something about the movie, that some things that happen in the movie, to marker your comments as spoilers, just put a big capital letter, spoilers, so that everyone knows when they're reading down in the comments that they're not going to read things that they shouldn't be reading, okay? Let's be very kind and respectful of other viewers of movies, okay? But I would be interested to know whether any of you have got other movies that you would like me to review. I've been debating, like, obviously did the reaction to, like, the Beetlejuice things and Nosferatu, and I figured I'd probably do movie reviews for those when they come out and when I go see them, because I've done reactions to them. I don't know whether I'd do The Crow, because there's nothing about it that appeals to me, but maybe that's the reason why I should do it. I'm not entirely sure. The vote is still very much out on that one. But if you would like me to see it, if you would like to check that out, and that's something you would enjoy viewing yourself, then please let me know. Just jot it down below, and I appreciate that, you know? Of course, if you would like to come talk to me about any of these wonderful things, then please check me out on Twitch. Twitch is where I hang out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays. We have a good time. We have a good laugh. It's all fun and games. You can also check me out on TikTok, where I do lots of random bits and pieces. I haven't posted as much on TikTok these days. I've been really busy doing little bits and pieces, and I haven't been able to get that daily output that I have been wanting to. But I will be coming back to it. I've got plans for coming back to TikTok. And then, of course, there is the Instagram, which is a lot of like the behind the scenes and my pretty face. My pretty face, because it's beautiful and pretty, you know, very Vogue. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, friends. I would love to know what you think of the Alien movie if you would like to. I'd love to know what you think about the Alien Resurrection and Prometheus, and whether you agree with me as to the fact that they're all right movies, but they shouldn't be in the Alien franchise, or whether you think that I'm just full of shit and that I should just accept them as part of what's going on. Let me know what's going on there. And of course, don't forget to like, and if you like the stuff that I do, don't forget to potentially press that subscribe button. I remind you, because many people forget, including myself. I always forget to like and subscribe to a variety of different channels and then can never find them anymore. So this is me reminding you that if this is the channel that you would like to like and subscribe to, then please do so. You know, I will not be back next week. There'll be no video next week, because next week I am taking my partner away on holiday. We are escaping for a little while, so there'll be no video next week, but we'll be back the week after with more hedonistic shenanigans, most likely. More hedonistic shenanigans, most likely, all right? Until then, you beautiful individuals, don't do anything I wouldn't do, because if I wouldn't do it, I'll fucking kill you.